Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. Metro is the operator of the public transportation system for the St. Louis metropolitan region. It provides the public with the buses, call-a-ride service, and MetroLink. Metro was established as the Bi-State Development Agency in 1949 through an interstate compact between Missouri and Illinois. The compact was ratified by the U.S. Congress and signed into law by President Truman. Bi-State was created as a regional transportation system not tied to any one municipality, county, or state. Metro also operates the St. Louis Downtown Airport in Illinois, the Gateway Arch Riverboats, and other riverfront attractions. Metro Transit is governed by a 10-member board which is responsible for the overall leadership and policy direction for the agency. Our guest today is John Nations. He's been President and Chief Executive Officer since October 2010. Prior to that, Mr. Nations served 3 terms as Mayor of Chesterfield, Missouri. He's a graduate of St. Louis University School of Law and practiced law from 1988 through 2010. John Nations, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
So I knew you before.
Absolutely. Nice to see you.
And you've been busy since the last time, because I haven't seen you since face to face since you took over as the head of Metro. Bi-State. What is the difference? I mean, you know, I know that you call it Metro, but it's still actually Bi-State Development.
The name of the entity, and I appreciate you going through the history because it's interesting to a lot of people. The company was actually formed and named the Bi-State Development Agency of the Missouri-Illinois Metropolitan District, commonly referred to as Bi-State. It is now really popularly known as Metro after the public transit system. You got into something that people find very, very interesting. I was delighted to hear you talk about. We were not formed actually to be a transit company. Our origins were that we were going to be a regional economic development driver for both sides of the river. We have geographically, we encompass Madison, Monroe, and St. Clair County in Illinois. Then we have the city of St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and Jefferson County on the Missouri side. In the 50s, we did a lot of interesting work. We ended up doing the first plans that led to the first plan for the interstate highway system. We did the work that led to the formation of MSD. We have very broad authority under our interstate compact. We exist by virtue of an agreement between Missouri and Illinois. We did work that led to the rebuilding of the ports in Granite City, but really what we evolved into was we provide the regional solutions to truly regional challenges. The company that everybody sees now really began to take shape in the early 60s. The first problem the region came to us to solve was Parks Airport, now known as St. Louis Downtown. In the early 60s, it had actually gone broke and actually closed. The region comes to us to solve the problem because it was then and remains the closest airport to downtown St. Louis. We bought it at the time, fixed it, reopened it. It is now the 3rd busiest airport in the state of Illinois, second only to Lambert in terms of the St. Louis region, and it remains the closest airport to downtown St. Louis. In combining the airport and the surrounding industrial park over there, there's at any given time 1,100 to 1,200 jobs. Illinois came out with a study in September of 2012, which kind of took us off guard. We hadn't done a study of its economic impact. Illinois came out and said the annual economic impact was about $584 million a year. That is an airport that we own and we operate. Then they came to us about the Gateway Arch. They'd never built an arch. It was kind of uncertain as to how they would do that. Then, as now, the Congress has never given bonding authority to the Park Service. They couldn't really pay for the arch. So we finance the tram system that's in the arch. We are the only entity that has ever operated the Gateway Arch since the trams went into operation in 1967. In the 80s, we financed and constructed and have operated the Arch Garage on the north ends of the ground. That's why we are so involved in the City Arch River project, because we're the operator of it. We can provide financing. We were able to operate it, do the financing, pay off the bonds, and make the arch successful, something we're very proud of. But clearly the biggest problem the region came to us to solve was public transportation. By the spring of 1963, there were 15 separate public transit companies in St. Louis. They all really had 2 things in common. They all provided public transportation, and you want to guess what the second thing was? They were all losing money.
Yes.
So they
Well,
came to...
isn't that the normal for public transportation?
Yeah.
Is that you have to put some more into it. You're never going to get enough out of the fare box.
Right, it is a service like everything else, you know. And so on April 1st, 1963, we issued $22+ million worth of bonds, bought those companies, bought all their assets, and formed it for the first time into a regional transportation company.
Now, did you buy over in Illinois as well?
Yeah, well, the bi-state system was running on both sides. We
Right.
bought all the assets. Although we, as I said, we have 3 counties in Illinois, and the city, St. Louis County, and then Jefferson and St. Charles County in Missouri, we only run public transit really in St. Louis County, the city of St. Louis, and in St. Clair County, Illinois. Now public transit consists of 3 modes, and that is the bus that everybody's been familiar with, the MetroLink, which the first phase of which went into operation in 1993 and has subsequently been expanded, and then the caller ride for the elderly and the disabled, which allows a lot of people to lead independent lives who otherwise would not be able to do so.
I can give a testimonial. My next door neighbor is, I've seen Call a Ride come by and take him to the doctor.
It's a fantastic service. As a matter of fact, we're very proud of our transit service in St. Louis. Although it's not generally known, for the system for what it is widely admired around the country and around the world for its efficiencies and for its effectiveness. It's not a big system. It's never going to compete with Washington, D.C. and New York and Los Angeles. But what we do extremely well. Our efficiencies lead the country. Our maintenance division was rated best in North America, one of the top 5 in the world. The dependability of our fleet, the amount of service that we can put on the street and on the rails for the money that's made available to us really leads the industry. One of the things we're proud of, and you can compare systems all kinds of different ways, all kinds of measurements in the transit system. But when you look at some of our peer groups, you know, cities that are comparable size, trying to run multiple modes, a lot of those cities subcontract out some of their service to the private sector. And even a lot of those cities that subcontract to the private sector, we still have better efficiencies than they do. It's something we're very, very proud of. Our transit operation is currently held by a wonderful guy. His name is Ray Freem. We stole him from Pittsburgh nearly 20 years ago, and what his team is able to achieve for this region is really an incredible story. We get calls. We have people flying here from around the country and around the world. Last month, the latest call came from Russia, which is not uncommon to get calls from around the globe, because now you can go online and you can research efficiencies, you can see what people do, all the information is out there, and then they call us and say, you know, we look at your numbers, we compare you around, we'd like to come talk to you as to how you can do that. One of the things about public transit in St. Louis that is very difficult for people kind of to understand, because it doesn't get talked about a lot, is how public transportation actually gets put on the street and how that service actually ends up there. It is a challenge in St. Louis. On the Missouri side of the river, the state of Missouri really doesn't fund public transit. We have about a $275 million operating budget for transit. The state of Missouri last year forwarded to us a little over $400,000.
Now, yeah, I want you to pause there for just a second, because I know you're going to say Illinois and St. Clair County, the Illinois guys, they're giving you a whole bunch more money for transit. But why does the state of Missouri only give you $400,000?
You'd have to go ask the state of Missouri.
Have you asked them?
Yeah, we have asked them. There's always been a reason that it's not a good year. They don't have enough money. It's never been a priority for the state of Missouri, frankly. Most transit companies around the country, on average, about 25% of their operating funds will come from a state government. And here that doesn't happen. Now, the thing that's important for people to understand is when it comes to putting public transit on the street, we are really just a big contractor for the region. We are not a taxing authority. When a tax issue goes on the ballot, whether it's St. Louis County or the city of St. Louis or in Illinois, that money doesn't come to us. What happens is it goes to St. Louis County separately, and the taxes in the city are collected by the city of St. Louis and then in St. Clair County. What we do is we actually put service packages together based on miles and hours and capital costs and debt service in those jurisdictions separately. So we will put together a service package for St. Louis County, we will put one together for the city, and we will put one together for St. Clair County, Illinois. So the question that often comes up, people thinking, okay, well, we get all the money and we get to decide where all the service goes. The question I will get a lot is, hey John, you know, I see buses sometimes over in Illinois, maybe, and they don't look as full as they could be. And I see buses in St. Louis County, even in some parts of St. Louis City, where they're not full. Why don't you take some of those, buses that are not as full, maybe in South St. Louis County or in my area, Chesterfield sometimes, or in Wildwood, and why don't you put that service in the city of St. Louis? And the answer is I cannot do that. If I take tax money from the people of St. Louis County that is approved by the St. Louis County Council and the county executive, I can't take the money from St. Louis County and then put it on service in the city, any more than I could take the money from the city and put it into service in St. Clair County or vice versa. So how we put the system together is indeed a challenge. Nevertheless, the system is an award-winning system, and we're proud of the fact that in St. Louis, ridership is growing. 2 of the last 9 quarters, our ridership as a percent has been the fastest growing in the country. For the first time in decades, we're seeing overcrowding on some of our routes. For the first time in decades, you're hearing people say, we need more public transportation. For the first time in decades, you're seeing a lot of the major employers, and frankly of all sizes, coming and saying, as we try to attract this millennial generation into St. Louis, it is a different generation, and there's things that they want. One is parks, trails, and green space, a healthier lifestyle, and they expect to have good public transportation. And that's a conversation St. Louis really has not been in for some time. But one of the biggest challenges we face is how we're funded and how the service actually gets on the street and on the rails, and then also getting the public to understand how we operate as a business. Because what we put on the street is exactly related to the amount of funds that are appropriated and paid over to us for that service.
So how are you doing that? I mean, you said you're getting 400,000, no,
400,000 from the state.
From the 400,000, I mean, that's
right.
Nickel and dime right there.
Right.
400,000 from the state. I said to you earlier that the fare box can simply not supply enough money to you to actually operate the business. Like a movie theater, you got to collect enough money to run the movie theater. So where's the gap being met?
The gap is being met by a tremendous commitment from local taxpayers. Let me separate out the states for just a second, though. On the St. Clair County side, on the Illinois side of our service, they do get they do get money from the state of Illinois.
Right.
Illinois funds public transit. Missouri does not. So when we deal with St. Clair County and the St. Clair County Transit District, some of that money is state money. On the Missouri side, what happens is it's really been a tremendous local commitment. There are 3 sales taxes in the city of St. Louis to support public transportation, and there are 3 sales taxes in St. Louis County to support it. On top of that, we get some capital money from the federal government to the tune of about $50 million a year. Generally, for capital, the feds stopped their subsidies and their appropriations for operating back in the 1990s when Bill Clinton was president, actually. Mm-hmm. So the operating funds, we get about a little over 20% of the funds from the fare box, about average, okay? But the rest of it is a tremendous commitment from local taxpayers in the city of St. Louis and in St. Louis County who have made public transportation a priority. They know how important it is in order to get that service on the street. So that's something we're very, very proud of. So when we talk about public transportation, I realize everybody talks about Bi-State, they talk about Metro, but the real story is that it is a tremendous partnership between Bi-State, St. Louis County, the city of St. Louis, and St. Clair County, Illinois, in order to put that service on the street.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you feel like you're in competition in Missouri with MoDOT?
No, we do not. Frankly, MoDOT is actually becoming an increasingly important partner to us. MoDOT, which changed their name from the old Highway Department to a Department of Transportation, I actually meet with them on a regular basis. And as you see things progress in Missouri, they're looking at multiple modes themselves. The highway system in Missouri will remain of primary importance to MoDOT. Mm-hmm. But if you look at what's happening in Missouri and you look at what's happening particularly in St. Louis, you talk about freight movements, you talk about all types of things. Other things that MoDOT is looking at is what investments might need to be made in rail, for instance, across the state in order to move freight. Sometimes it may be more effective to invest some funds in public transportation in an urban area rather than build another road in an urban area. So I commend MoDOT because they're looking at multiple modes. What they look at is what is the best way to move people? What's the most efficient way to move people with the dollars that we have? MoDOT, frankly, has been a very good partner in working with us on a project that we're working on and studying called bus rapid transit, which would create some dedicated lanes for buses, primarily on interstates, probably on the Missouri side. And they've been tremendously helpful. But we're very proud of our partnership with MoDOT. They, of course, as you know, have a reputation across the country for the tremendous good work that they do.
Before we went on the air, I asked you about Eads Bridge, and then I stopped you and said, we'll talk about that on the air.
Glad to do it.
So let's talk about the Eads Bridge. You own that? You own it or you control it?
We own it.
You own it.
We own the entire superstructure. The city of St. Louis actually owns the road deck. It's kind of an interesting story. We acquired the Eads Bridge in connection with the first construction of the first alignment of MetroLink that went from Lambert Airport in St. Louis County to East St. Louis over at 5th Street. The major infrastructure.
The casino. That's where
right.
It was the casino.
It was the casino, but
right.
We own the bridge and we own the tunnel under downtown. We own the tunnel under Union Station. Eads Bridge is really a fascinating thing to take a look at. On July 4th of this year, on July 4th, 2014, it will celebrate its 140th anniversary. It gets a lot of attention. It was the first steel arch bridge constructed in the United States. It was the first steel structure across the Mississippi River. You got to remember, also take into account, this was the late 1860s and the early 1870s. Steel at that time was an experimental metal. James Eads, who was not a bridge builder, figured out how to build a bridge. And he built it with steel, and they had to build it so they did not, at the time, that the steamboat and the ferry interests were so powerful that they said the only way, they thought they had put requirements on a bridge so that a bridge could never be constructed to compete with them. James Eads accepted that challenge. So James Eads, not only did he have to build a unique type of a structure, he also had to build it without obstructing the riverboat traffic. So they sunk the piers, and then they actually cantilevered out from the piers until the arches met, and so that they didn't actually obstruct the river traffic. But 140 years later, the bridge has never been fully rehabilitated, believe it or not. And when we looked hard at that project, the question is, does it make sense to be rehabilitated? Does it make sense to build a new bridge to carry the rail traffic over? What is the most cost-effective thing? So we had all kinds of experts take a look at the bridge, and my engineering department has some of the best bridge people you're going to find, period. They spent a long time looking at it, and they actually came in and said it will be much, much cheaper, believe it or not, even though it's 140 years old, to rehabilitate that bridge. And when I say rehabilitate, what that consists of, we're blasting 140 years of paint and corrosion off of it. If any of the metal or the steel needs to be replaced, we will replace it, but it is in remarkably good condition. You know, obviously when you undertake a project like that, as I told the public about at the time repeatedly, we really don't know what we're going to find. We can't test every steel piece. We can't test every steel pin. But after we'd gotten into it for a while, I was talking to some of my guys, and I've walked out on the bridge to view it personally. It's really something to see. And I said, have there been any good surprises? And they said, yeah, you know, John, there have been a lot of them. There are these pins that hold this bridge together, where all these, you know, members come into place. And these pins are solid steel. You know, you're talking about things this big around. And he said, if those had been bad, then we would have had to have them specially made. You know, all this kind of stuff would have been very, very expensive. And I said, what'd you find out? And he said, it's amazing. We blasted 140 years off of those things, and it's like they're brand new. He said, unbelievable. So if you look at the bridge right now, here in, you know, April of 2014, if you see it from the north side, it looks brand new again. The steel structure is all repainted, it looks brand new, and now we're about to switch over to the south side, or really the eastbound side, and you'll see it.
Perhaps there's a lesson in this for modern engineers in terms of over-engineering and the value of that.
And you know, it could be, you know, one of the, if you look at when, and there are photographs of it under construction, there are photographs of it when it opened, but if you look at it, it was designed for horse traffic and much smaller trains. Now 140 years later, we can run truck traffic, heavier trains, the whole 9 yards, and one of the reasons is it was overbuilt at the time. The actual first design of the bridge had the double deck, the train below, traffic above, and it didn't even have the arches. So James Eads added 4 arches, those tube arches that are really kind of the signature design of it, in each of the 3 spans of the river. And to this day, they say, why can it carry the traffic? Because it was over-engineered. It was very difficult to test steel and its capabilities. It was an experiment. Steel was an experiment. Using steel as a construction metal was an experiment at the time. But now you look at it 140 years later, and it is really an amazing thing to work on, it's an amazing thing to see, and it's amazing to admire it.
And one of the good things is that St. Louisans love history.
They do. You know, we're proud of the fact that, you know, Eads Bridge was the iconic symbol of St. Louis, you know, until the arch came along. And now the arch, of course, is the iconic symbol of our city. And we own one of those, the Eads Bridge, and we have always operated the second one, which is the arch. So we have great partnerships. We produce a lot for the region. As I say, you know, which is why I'm always glad to have a conversation about, you know, things like this, Lee, and I'm delighted at your invitation, is we're probably one of the best known names in St. Louis, but we're also probably one of the least understood as to all the things that we do, A, and B, how we really function as a business, how public transit really gets on the street and how it's paid for. It's like I say, when it comes to transit, we're a big contractor. People say you ought to put more on the street. My response to that is, I'm in the business of selling and providing public transit. I'll be glad to put out there as much as anybody or
Wants
much
to pay for.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So when you look at it, does it make money? No, but like everything else, you know, people say you don't make money off a street either. You know, there are certain things that the government makes an investment in because it makes the community a better place.
Well, you and I both know that there is a large number of members of the Missouri State House of Representatives that are in the St. Louis area. There's a number of state senators here. When you combine the large number that are here with the large number in Kansas City, you would think that there would be sufficient numbers of members of the legislature that would think like, yeah, investment in urban transportation is a good idea.
We certainly think it's a good investment, you know. And
But why is it that, that's what I was getting at, why is it that the legislature, which in many respects is more of a rural organization, why is it that it's hard for them to understand the value of investing in public transportation?
You know, that's the $64,000 question, to be honest with you. You know, what's interesting is I deal with two states, Missouri on one side, Illinois on the other. Illinois invests heavily in public transportation, you know, mainly because of Chicago, but they always make sure that everybody else in Illinois gets taken care of. We believe and have made the case repeatedly, and look at the commitment the voters are making here in St. Louis with regard to the system. We believe it is a tremendous investment. When you look at the fact that 75% of the people who ride the system, and again, we're providing about 1 million rides a week, a little less, but right on the $1 million a week mark, nearly 52 million rides a year. 75% of the people who ride it are going to work. 20% of those rides are going to students. So you're either supporting yourself and your family, or you're trying to improve your ability to support yourself and your family in the future. You know, when we had the Proposition A campaign in St. Louis County 4 years ago, it was really a very interesting thing. There's all types of perceptions, but the thing that I hammered away on in that campaign, and it's interesting because I wasn't with Metro at the time. I was asked to come in because I was mayor of a West County suburb, and I understood how important public transit is to the jobs all over the region. But I would go out night after night, and obviously there were people in favor of it, people were against it. But the thing, rather than arguing with people, because you can do that, I would ask them a question. And the question was, how many of you really believe, raise your hand, how many of you really believe that we're going to attract national and regional job investment into St. Louis by saying we really don't have a viable public transportation system? And every night it was very consistent, 1 to 2, 3% of the hands would go up. And I'd look at everybody else and I'd say, I respect that. If that's what you believe, obviously I respect your opinion. Okay, 97% of you realized that's not the answer. 97% of you realize it's something we need to help make St. Louis successful. Now let's talk about what we all understand is a need, the best way to provide that for the St. Louis region. And of course the voters responded, and 63 or 64% of the voters supported that proposition, something we're very proud of. It's something we take very, very seriously in delivering our service every day.
In the last 4 or 5 minutes here, I would like you to just discuss your vision of the future for Metro. What do you see happening, both bus and MetroLink?
Well,
let's just stay with those two areas.
Okay, bus and MetroLink. I believe that right now we have tremendous opportunities on both sides of the river to reach more employment places. I think what you're finding with our overcrowding, we're seeing the demand for it. It's obviously getting the attention in the city of St. Louis. It's getting attention in St. Louis County. Frankly, we're getting a lot of inquiries now from St. Charles County. So we see a lot of potential. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who wants to pay for how much service. One of the things that we're running into right now, which is troubling for us. It's really not so much at the local level, but given what we talked about at the state level, the federal government is also having very difficult times financially paying for things. And in fact, we haven't had a long-term transportation bill now in several years.
Isn't the Federal Highway Trust Fund like empty?
Right, it's scheduled to go broke later this year, and the Transit Trust Fund, on which it is based, because the Transit Trust Fund gets a portion of it, is scheduled to run out of money early next year. Now, people believe, okay, well, they'll come up with a fix. Well, we certainly hope so, but on the flip side of that is, you can talk about keeping the wheels running on a day-to-day basis, you know, trying to get a long-term bill, but what happens is, the way that's going on is, there's no ability to plan anything, because you don't know what the money situation is going to be like more than 6 months at a time. So we talk about extending MetroLink, and we have several options for it already in our long-range plan. One would be to take it from Clayton out to Westport. One would be to extend the line further south from Shrewsbury into South County. One would take it further north up to the community college up in Florissant. One is north side, south side, which would be from North City through downtown through South City. And another one would take it out to SIUE over in Illinois. All those things get attention. The question is, where would the money come from? And right now, with the tremendous uncertainty at the federal level, and it's not just the trust fund may go broke at a given time.
It is broke.
Right. The head of the FTA told me a year ago, you know, John, for all the requirements we put on you at the local level, you know, he said flat out, the federal government is defaulting on some of its obligations. The way projects are built are what is known as a full funding grant agreement, if you do it with the feds. And the feds are going to pay you X amount of dollars over a determinable amount of years. And the feds had to come back and say, on some of their projects, we can't make those payments. So we're going to have to extend, we're going to have to shift the years, and so that doesn't bode very well, you know. But the thing that's good news for St. Louis is we have a lot of good people very interested in the success of our system. They know how much it means, and we're confident that we will be able to put the partnerships together to always provide a quality service and hopefully expand it in the future to meet the demand.
And you've indicated that it is really sales tax which is the main payer of your services. Is that right?
That's true. In St. Louis County this year, I have to go through an appropriation process. It'll be about $130 million appropriation from St. Louis County of those three sales taxes, about $35 million in the city of St. Louis, and then about $45 million in St. Clair County, Illinois.
And is this getting ready to expire, any of these taxes, or they're
No.
just ongoing?
They do not have sunset clauses in them. They are ongoing.
Okay, we've run out of time.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
I very much am glad to have you come and spend some time explaining to people what it is that bi-state development, i.e. Metro, is doing.
Right, thank you.
And it's good to see that, you know, that you're so successful at it as well, with all these awards that you guys are winning.
I have a tremendous team, and you know, the best you can do is attract good people to work for you and with you, and let's all move in the right direction.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
And to my audience, I've been speaking with John Nations. He's the president and CEO of what is commonly known as Metro. It's also, its technical name is the Bi-State Development Agency. Thank you very much for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Look for us on YouTube. Goodbye.